This is George Dionne for KNAC.com, and I'm here with Whitfield Crane, vocalist and founder of Ugly Kid Joe. If I knew absolutely nothing about Ugly Kid Joe, how would you describe the band's music to me?
We ain't glam and we ain't thrash.
I kind of agree with that. Even though Ugly Kid Joe was kind of lumped in with the hair bands, I kind of always saw you as the anti-hair band.
That's true, for sure. We're we're kind of the last smile that got through the door before grunge, you know. And even to this day, you know, it's hard to place us. You know, like we loved like the old school masters. We loved Van Halen and Sabbath and Priest and Motorhead and AC/DC and all that. So those kind of bands like would take us out and adopted us, and we've always, you know, we mirror a lot of that, right? But as far as in the early 90s, and fair enough, we didn't really fit in a section with any of our peers. So, yes, it's a very interesting definition to come up with.
Absolutely. And Ugly Kid Joe is getting ready to release their next studio album on October 21st through Metalville Records. It's called Rad Wings of Destiny. This is your first new studio album in 7 years. So what has Ugly Kid Joe been up to since the last studio album?
Well, we toured an awful lot. And then just like everybody else, the pandemic came and gave a big wink and a salute of stopping all fluidity. So I guess everyone took 2.5 years off right there to celebrate the 30th anniversary of America's Least Wanted, which was produced by, you know, really an amazing producer by the name of Mark Dodson, who is who's not only a great producer, but our dear friend. So to celebrate the 30-year anniversary of that album and that experience, we rebooted, and Mark Dodson got back on board, and we made Rad Wings of Destiny. I mean, we wrote it, and then we tracked it in a place in El Paso, Texas, called a Sonic Ranch, and which was super cool. It was in the middle of a pecan farm, in the middle of nowhere, right next to Juarez, Mexico. Really interesting studio environment. You know, it had wonderful cooks that cooked for you, you know, 3 meals a day. You had your own room. There was Picasso paintings and Dali paintings and the best gear I've ever seen, and really awesome people to work with. And then us. And when I say us, that means the Ugly Kid Joe roster, which includes, you know, 2 drummers in this storyline. One would be named Shannon Larkin, and the other one would be named Zach Morris. So we had 2 drummers there that both played on the record. Of course, once again, produced by Mark Dodson. We had another guitar player fly in from Melbourne, Australia. His name's Jeff Kern. He's a lefty. He's got a great guitar tone. I play in a band with him that goes by the name of Yellow Cake, which we love to create. And you know, we had Larkin, we had Zach Morris, we had Jeff Kern, Klaus Eichstadt, Cordell Crockett, and of course Mark Dodson and myself. And we made some magic. And so, yeah, it's been 7 years, and we're really excited to birth these 10 songs. And here we go.
It's funny that you mentioned the bands that you did mention when you said your influences off the first question, because I hear a lot of that in a lot of the songs, and I certainly hear more like Motorhead-ish kind of AC/DC in one of your singles, That Ain't Living.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, okay. So for me, I mean, just this is my personal mirror. Like, my heroes are Rob Halford, Ozzy Osbourne, and Bon Scott, as far as rock and roll singing goes. Dickinson's awesome. Paul Di'Anno's awesome. But those first 3 are kind of like the guys that those are my heroes. So, and then slowly but surely, because I don't play piano, I don't play guitar, I'm just kind of walking around singing songs. And slowly but surely, and a large variable would be the patience that my guitar players have with me, which is a lot of patience. I've become more fluid at writing songs. You know, when I write riffs, like I wrote That Ain't Living. So I wrote that riff on an island called Patmos in Greece. And I was like, no way, I think this, you know, because you never really know. You have to go share it with your band members. But sometimes you're like, oh my God, I think this riff is sick, right? And I showed it to my guys, and they're like, it is good, dude. And so we worked that tirelessly. And for sure, it's a tip of the hat. It's a respect towards specifically Bon Scott, Power Age, AC/DC. Like that's what it's meant to mirror, and that's on purpose.
So you mentioned that your songwriting has become more refined, but I think it's become more mature when you compare it to your earlier work. Certainly songs like Long Road and Kill the Pain, there is certainly a life lived behind those words.
That would be true. That's you're dead on right there, bullseye. So, when we were kids, we had a lot of fortuitous things happening for us. And, we've got a record deal and we made music and people bought the albums. And we got to go tour around the world for a couple of years. And that was a lot. But, if you were to be honest about where we were at, I never left California. And in fact, I didn't think I'd ever leave California. Not only did we leave it, but it became a constant. We toured and toured, and life comes. We've all played in different bands. A myriad of life experiences. Life and death, disappointment, excitement, all the different things that you would go through. I'm 54 now, so of course, as far as my journey or my travails or however you wanted to word that, we have more to say innately, not even on purpose. So yeah, we've evolved a little bit. And we're grateful to get to do it. Many are called fewer chosen type of shit. So I was hanging out with Lemmy in 2012. I just kind of went on the Motorhead tour bus. I showed up with my backpack, and Anthrax was opening up. And I showed up in London, not to go on tour in the sense of I didn't have a band, but I showed up and said, I want to go on tour with you guys. And they said, okay, that's cool. So I went on the Motorhead bus and toured and toured and toured. And we got to Newcastle, England. And Lemmy and I were talking backstage about just, what it all is, and, what is this musical experience, blah, 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 blah. And I up to this moment, I hadn't had a jingle or a rhyme or a wording that would mirror what I was looking for. And his punchline to me, it's too long a story to go into, but his punchline, he looked at me and he said, no, you're not. You're a working musician. And right then and there, I went, oh God, that's exactly what I want. That's the answer. Because there's the idea of the rock star, which, is non-existent or at the very least dangerous, AKA the myth of it all. And where do you find solace in whatever you do? So for me, it's singing songs and touring. It all leads to touring for me. So that's the key to the whole thing. So yeah, we have an album. It's Rad Wings of Destiny. And we've been touring and we've been working musicians. And that, to me, as far as what it all is that's where we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to work.
Exactly. And it seems like everything has come full circle for bands in the late 80s and early 90s. What's old is new again. And certainly there's a desire for the music that people grew up with and to hear new music from the people that we grew up with. Plus, the return of vinyl and the demand for CDs as well. Again, everything's coming back around. And with Ugly Kid Joe, you're kind of giving them something new, but something nostalgic with the formats that you're presenting for Rad Wings of Destiny, like red, white, and blue vinyls and t-shirt bundles, cassettes, and CDs.
My favorite part of that story was the word cassette. I love cassettes. There's nothing better than a cassette, Yeah, it's neat. It's neat to do it. Making art is fun. Making analog art, of course, that, once again, that reminds me of, where I come from. So, I'm not sure what the new generation thinks about all that, but I'm so happy that vinyl's back and making tapes is back. CDs have always fascinated me. I've never really been a CD guy, but yeah, it's fun to make the art. And we sit and it's first person as well. Like, as you well know, and I'm sure this affects what you're doing with the KNAC, is like, because no one, this isn't a complaint, but it's an observation, because no one buys music at a macro, there's not a lot of financial infrastructure to push what we do. But that said, because of that, a lot of the people that, let's say, were just there for cash, which is fair, if that's what you're doing, aren't there anymore. They've changed their station and they've set sail on a different ship. So he or she who's in this conversation, in this case it's you and me, we love what we do. So for making the art, we got an artist named Daniel Mercer. He's so awesome. So we get to sit there without being prodded or nudged by any other forces but ourselves. That's healthy for the art itself. So when you open the vinyl and when you pull the sleeve out, you look at the lyrics and we've put a lot of effort into it. And that is a cool moment that I will have when I actually get it in my hand, but equally we could share that with other people. And then, it comes, somebody will put that, the pendulum on right? And stick it on the vinyl. And somebody somewhere is going to do that, some country, some town, and hopefully enjoy it. And that to me is really exciting.
You guys just finished up a little run of summer festivals over in Europe. Were you able to preview some of the new songs over there?
Yeah, we played That Ain't Livin', which was, it's songs to me are like metaphorically like your children. You're not sure if they, how people will react to them. So the one song we did play was That Ain't Livin'. It went over like gangbusters. We played it at Hellfest in France, which is a big heavy metal show. A lot of great bands. We were main stage. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I said, here's what I need you to do to the crowd. And boom, it was on. So great response for that particular song, once again, which is That Ain't Living It. And then now that we've released Kill the Pain and we've released Long Road, and we'll release another song before we go out in November in the UK, we'll all the songs that we've released, we'll go ahead and go play and see what happens.
Excellent. And you have a UK tour in the fall coming up with
it starts November 2nd, and then some other dates are added, like in France, I think in Copenhagen, and some other countries somewhere in there. So we're nudging it to when we release those informational tools. But the UK stuff it's on fire. It's tickets are killer right now. We're co-headlining the UK run with a band called Massive Wagons, which is blowing up in the UK. We're really excited for those guys. And get back on the horse and ride.
On Rad Wings of Destiny, you covered probably one of the biggest British artists, the Kinks, with your version of Lola. I believe Ray Davies is still over there making music and is like probably more popular than Paul McCartney, I'd say.
Well, he's a neat guy, and the Kinks are an incredibly enigmatic band, but what geniuses, right? Particularly Ray. Yeah, in the back of my mind, I've always wanted to cover a Kinks song. Like Van Halen 1, they covered a Kinks song, and I'm like, I wonder what song we could do. And it turns out that we we're figuring out what cover to do when we're tracking Rad Wings in El Paso, and everybody was there. All the agents were there. Shannon Larkin was there, right? And I was like, ooh, there's Shannon. And man, that guy's a magic man, right? And in every way, including drums. And I came, we went out to dinner in El Paso proper, and I went into Burger King to use the loo, and in the Burger King bathroom in El Paso, there was a Kinks song playing. It wasn't Lola, but it was a Kinks song, which, the penny dropped immediately for me. And I was like, oh, wait, I wanted to cover Lola. And I went back to the van that was taking us to a nice dinner. And I said, hey, you guys, I got this idea. And then, you know right away if your idea is going to hold water or not. And I go, Lola. And they all went, everyone just kind of paused, producer, band members, even the van driver. And everyone looked over and said, yeah. And we went and got dinner, went back and tracked that song. And it came out killer. It's very ambitious to cover a masterpiece, but I think we did real good.
As you mentioned, Shannon Larkin appears as a second drummer on Rad Wings of Destiny. Is he going to be able to join you at any shows? I know that Godsmack's going to be stepping out there pretty soon as well.
No, I imagine that he's going to be strictly in the Godsmack world and probably just spending a lot of time at his casa in Fort Myers. But if the winds show themselves in a way that it would make sense, he would totally jam with us. But, nothing organized at this moment.
You mentioned that Rad Wings of Destiny is kind of paralleling the 30th anniversary of America's Least Wanted, and you are working with the same producer as America's Least Wanted, Mark Dodson. Let's talk a little bit about kind of back then, 30 years ago, putting that album together and kind of the response that followed.
Well, back then, we made that EP. What was it called? Ugly as They Want to Be. And that EP, we didn't know what we're doing. And I don't think we really know what we're doing now. But that thing sold an awful lot of albums. And so all of a sudden, the label was behind us for that moment in time. And they said, we want to get you in the studio immediately. And we were like, oh, yeah, we're ready for that. But, we weren't ready for that. We didn't have the songs for it. Not really. We had maybe 8 songs, right? And I've never listened to a snare drum, or I just like music, or I didn't like music. I think that's how most human beings filter music. They like it or they don't, right? But for me, I'm a massive Judas Priest fan. Like it's, I love the Priest, right? And so all of a sudden we'd sold all these records on the EP, and we had The Truth and the Illusion of Choice. Like we could go pick any producer we wanted at that point, or supposedly that's what we were told. And so I'm all radical. What does that even mean? And name some producers and who's worked with Priest. That was my main thing. Me and Klaus. And I was like, who has worked with Judas Priest? And so it was Mark Dodson. So we went down to go meet Mark Dodson at Devonshire Studios in Hollywood. And there he was, smoking Marlboro Reds on a big Neve board. And I was just like, no way, that guy's met Priest. He knows Rob Halford and Glenn Tipton and KK Downing and Ian Hill and maybe even Simon Phillips. You never know. And there he was, and I just staring at him. And he's like, he looked at us, we were like little kids, And I said, did you really work with Priest? And he's like, he's English. He's like, yes, mate. I worked on Sin After Sin, and I worked on Defenders of the Faith. I'm like, well, you're the guy. That was it for us, just because of the Priest thing. And then we became great friends, and we made a record, and people around the world enjoyed it, and we had this incredible experience. I was really green. Like I was great at, or good at, singing live, right? But the studio was like this foreign environment that wasn't that rhythmic. It was like, and now I can survive a studio, no problem. But at that time, my repetition in such templates didn't exist. It was kind of tough in that, but it was also fun. We stayed, where did we stay? We stayed at some Oakwoods, I think it's called. And we all stayed there. We went every day. We drank Budweiser beers, and we made a record, and slowly but surely it became an album. And Dodson, like any producer, was a great psychologist to get it done. One of the coolest moments of that was, at that time I was dating a beautiful woman. One of the loves of my life. Her name is Karen Duffy. She was the MTV VJ at the time. And then Mark Dodson, of course, would do the Priest dudes and knew Halford. And at that time, Priest was defunct. Our dream was not, I just really wanted to meet Rob Halford. But anyway, he came down to somehow between my girlfriend and between Dodson, because this is back when there's fax machines. It wasn't like you could call someone on an iPhone. And anyway, so Rob Halford ends up coming down to Devonshire, and we're on tape. We're on Ampex 456, and we have the song "Goddamn Devil Up," which is devilish. And we show the song to Rob Halford in the studio. We look at him. I'm there he is, right? And he looks at Klaus, and he looks at me, and he goes, "I like the lyrics." And we were like, "Yes. Do you want to sing on it?" And he's like, and he just nodded, and he went in past, there's the Neve board, there's the glass, and there's where the, there's a drum room where you can also sing. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And there he was, and he went in, and I got to, for lack of a better terminology, produce him and talk to him on the talkback. I'd be a little more like this, a little more like Devil's Child, a little more like, and there he was, being the greatest vocal entity I'd ever seen. And also innately kind of teaching me how you should treat the studio. Of course, I didn't get there then, and maybe never will get all the way to where he goes, but it was quite an experience.
According to the internet, and I always take internet information with a grain of salt, you were asked by Glenn Tipton to sing for Judas Priest after Halford left?
Here's what I would do if I were you. I would go ask Shannon Larkin that story.
We'll go with that. Funny thing, looking back 30 years, on the cover of America's Least Wanted, it was controversial at the time, but I think today it would be celebrated.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I remember, I think controversy is probably actually pretty good, and I think it might have been good for us at the time. But as I recall, and this is me cherry picking kind of memories from 30 years ago, I think it was Walmart that had a problem with the finger dimensions of the hand of the Statue of Liberty on the cover. Yeah, I don't know the answer if it would be celebrated or people would be miffed, or I don't know. The world's so strange right now. I don't even know. If any of your listeners here, new fans or old fans, or hopefully somebody, if you open the vinyl that we're releasing for the Rad Wings album, and if you open the I guess the CD or the tape or whatever, you'll see a double gesture of such a something that was edited back then.
So maybe Walmart would have accepted it if you made the finger smaller.
I just don't know. I just think the United States is weird like that, right? And particularly the Bible Belt. People get weird.
Are you going to be doing anything with the Orchestra of Doom?
I hope I do. I'm still friends with that's cool you even know about that. I'm friends with the conductor, Andrea Battistoni. He's one of the youngest and most talented conductors in Italy. And so, yeah, I bet we circle around and do something with that sooner or later. It's a great thing. I hope so. I hope we do. I really hope we do.
And do you have any other musical projects that you're working on outside of Ugly Kid Joe?
I have a band called Yellow Cake with Jeff Curran, who plays on That Ain't Livin' and who plays on Drinking and Driving. I have a band with Lee Richards called Richards Crane, which is singer-songwriter stuff. I sing in a cover band called The Wedding Band with some pretty cool characters. I think let me think about that. There's probably more stuff, but I space it. But right now the focus is for sure on Rad Wings.
Absolutely. And it's a fantastic album from beginning to end. I've been listening to it all week. It comes out on October 21st on Metalville Records. That's all the questions I have for you today, Whitfield. I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with KNAC because I know you're doing limited interviews with select outlets for this cycle.
All right. All the best, man. Thanks for your time.